I never expected to feel invisible in my own marriage. After 18 years of being with Tom, the man I married when I was 24, I had become part of the furniture, predictable, unacknowledged, and worn down by routine. I'm 42 now. We had no kids together, but when Tom's son, Jake, 23, moved in with us for a few months while finishing grad school, I didn't think much of it. But something changed. Jake noticed me. Not in an overtly inappropriate way, not at first. He complimented my cooking, laughed at my jokes, even asked about my hobbies. It had been years since anyone, especially my own husband, looked at me with curiosity or warmth, and yes, I noticed how Jake's eyes lingered sometimes when I wore certain tops. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen wearing a tank top and cutting fruit. It was hot, and I didn't think twice. I turned to grab something, and I caught him watching me, not just casually. His gaze lingered on my chest, and instead of recoiling, I felt powerful. That was the moment something shifted. Over the next few weeks, tension brewed. Nothing physical happened, but the emotional connection between us deepened. He'd talk to me late at night while Tom was asleep. We shared stories, trauma, loneliness. He told me how he never felt seen by his own mother after her divorce. I told him how my marriage had died long ago, only the corpse hadn't been buried. One night, Jake brushed my hand in the hallway. I didn't pull away. I looked at him, and I knew this was the line. The next morning, Tom found a note Jake had written to me but never meant to send. A raw, confused confession of his feelings and how he didn't know what to do. My husband confronted both of us. Jake left that night, tears in his eyes. He cut off all contact. Tom didn't speak to me for days. When he finally did, it wasn't anger, it was heartbreak. "I didn't know you were this lonely," he said. That line gutted me more than anything. We've been in therapy since, trying, failing some days, healing others. But the damage is deep, not because of sex or betrayal, but because emotional affairs leave wounds that don't bleed, just ache. She didn't plan to fall into emotional confusion with someone she helped raise. For years, her marriage had quietly eroded, not with shouting matches or betrayal, but with cold silences, routines that replaced romance, and a growing sense of invisibility. She was once his everything. Now she was just there. Her name was Maria, and after almost 2 decades with Tom, she couldn't remember the last time he'd touched her with intention or looked her in the eye while speaking. When Jake, her 23-year-old stepson, moved back in during grad school, Maria expected nothing more than shared space and awkward dinners, but something subtle happened. Unlike Tom, Jake actually saw her. He noticed when she changed her hair. He asked about her paintings, long abandoned in the attic. He praised her cooking, something Tom had taken for granted for years. At first, it felt harmless, flattering even. Then came the nights when she stayed up just to catch a few extra moments with Jake in the kitchen. Conversations became personal. Jake talked about how emotionally absent his own mother had been after the divorce. Maria listened, nodding, but inside she was breaking because she knew what it felt like to be overlooked. One afternoon, she came into the living room wearing a form-fitting dress, something she hadn't done in years. She wasn't trying to seduce anyone, she just wanted to feel like herself again. Jake looked up. His eyes lingered just a second too long, and she felt it, not guilt, not fear, but a pulse of validation. That look didn't carry the weight of lust alone. It said, "You matter." This wasn't a story of seduction, but of emotional starvation, of two people broken in different ways, accidentally finding solace in each other's vulnerability. Maria didn't want Jake, not truly. What she wanted was to be wanted, to be seen, to be told that she still had something worth noticing. Jake became a mirror reflecting the version of herself she had lost. And slowly, their conversations began to toe the line, not physical, but intimate in a way Maria had forgotten existed. One night, he brushed her hand. It was brief, barely anything, but it was everything. Because she didn't pull away, she cried herself to sleep that night, not out of guilt but confusion. For the first time in years, she felt alive, and for all the wrong reasons. She wasn't chasing her stepson. She was chasing a version of herself buried under years of silence, rejection, and unmet needs. But in chasing that version, she was losing something far more precious: her clarity, her boundaries, and her peace. What began as innocent gratitude for attention became a slow unraveling, and the most painful part, Maria wasn't sure she even wanted to stop it, because emotional fulfillment, even from the wrong source, felt better than the ache of being invisible in her own home. The unraveling didn't happen with screaming or confessions. It began with silence, the kind that carries weight, the kind that enters a room before anyone speaks. Tom found the note by accident, tucked inside a book Jake had left behind. It was never meant to be read. Jake had poured his confusion onto the page, a tangled mix of admiration, guilt, and feelings he couldn't make sense of. He wrote that he didn't know when the line had blurred, but that Maria had become his emotional anchor, and he feared he was losing himself in something he shouldn't feel. Tom said nothing at first. He folded the note, placed it on Maria's nightstand, and left the house. When he returned that evening, the air was different. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't accuse her. He simply looked at her and asked, "Is this true?" That question, so calm, so devastating, hit her harder than if he'd shouted. She didn't deny it, she couldn't. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time in years, Tom really saw her, but it was too late. The damage was already in motion. Jake packed his things that night. There were no goodbyes, just a stiff, tear-choked apology to Tom, and a long, shattered glance toward Maria. She tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. She wanted to say sorry. She wanted to explain that it wasn't what they thought, that there was no physical betrayal, but in that moment, words were meaningless. Because emotional betrayal, she realized, bleeds without ever touching skin. In the days that followed, their house felt like a graveyard. No one spoke. Tom moved into the guest room. Maria kept the TV on during the day, not to watch, but to drown out the echo of her own thoughts. Shame took a new form, not regret over the emotional closeness she shared with Jake, but over how hollow her marriage had become to allow it. They began therapy, not out of hope, but as a last act of decency. The sessions were heavy. Tom admitted he hadn't realized how far apart they'd grown. Maria admitted that she felt like a ghost in her own life. They didn't point fingers. They didn't need to. The truth had already ripped them open. Maria wrote Jake a letter she never sent. In it, she said she forgave him, not for having feelings, but for being young and lost and looking for love in the wrong places. She forgave herself too slowly. Piece by piece, for being human, for being broken, for needing more than what she had and not knowing how to ask. The family didn't break from scandal. It cracked from silence, from years of unspoken resentment. From the emotional hunger that festered until it reached someone it shouldn't. And in that brokenness, Maria realized the worst betrayals are not the ones we plan, but the ones we slip into while looking for warmth in the cold. And yet, something even more unexpected was still to come.